The movie begins by showing a female news reporter and her cameraman in the midst of covering a murder story. Suddenly, a creepy-looking man appears and attacks them both, ultimately killing them. The narrative then shifts to 3 days earlier, taking us back in time. We are introduced to a group of college students who are embarking on a camping trip in West Virginia. One of the students is named Allison, and another is a young man named Chad, who is accompanied by his friends. As the group travels, they encounter 2 local villagers, Dale and Tucker, who are best friends. As the group of college students stops at a gas station, they encounter Dale and Tucker once again. It becomes apparent that Dale has taken a liking to Allison, one of the students. However, Dale is hesitant to approach her, as he perceives her as a city dweller, and therefore, someone he may not be able to easily connect with. Tucker, Dale's friend, encourages him to go talk to Allison. When Dale attempts to greet the group, they become visibly frightened and uncomfortable. The students seem to view Dale and Tucker as uneducated and potentially dangerous people from the rural village, judging them based on their appearance and background. Feeling unwelcome, the college students quickly leave the gas station without engaging further with Dale and Tucker. The 2 villagers then continue on their way towards the cabin they had rented in the jungle. As Dale and Tucker are driving, they are stopped by a police officer. When the officer learns that they are headed to the cabin in the remote, forested area, he warns them that it is a demonic place, filled with evil, and advises them against going there. This encounter highlights the perceived dangers and superstitions associated with the secluded wilderness location where Dale and Tucker have chosen to spend their vacation. Despite the police officer's warning about the supposedly demonic and dangerous nature of the area, Dale and Tucker choose to disregard his advice and continue on to the cabin they had rented. Upon arriving, they notice several strange occurrences, such as newspaper clippings stuck to the walls of the cabin. However, they decide to simply ignore these unusual sights and focus on the task of repairing the cabin. Meanwhile, the group of college students has also made their way to the remote forested location and have set up a tent for their camping trip. During this time, one of the students, Chad, shares a disturbing story with the group. He recounts a massacre that occurred in the same jungle about 20 years ago, in which local villagers allegedly killed all the campers who had come to the area, apparently doing so for their own twisted enjoyment. According to Chad, only one woman managed to survive the attack. Hearing this harrowing tale further heightens the college students' existing unease and distrust towards the local villagers. The students now view the residents of the rural community as potentially dangerous and untrustworthy, based on the historical incident described by Chad. After the disturbing story shared by Chad, the group of college students decides to go swimming in the nearby lake. Coincidentally, Dale and Tucker have also come to the same lake area to do some fishing. While the students are swimming, Allison becomes stuck on a large rock in the water. She happens to spot Dale and Tucker nearby. Upon seeing the 2 local villagers, Allison becomes frightened and panicked, causing her to slip and fall into the water. When Allison fails to resurface after a significant amount of time, Dale and Tucker realize she is in distress. Without hesitation, they jump into the lake to rescue her. They manage to pull the unconscious Allison out of the water and bring her onto their boat. Witnessing this, Allison's friends immediately jump to the conclusion that Dale and Tucker have somehow harmed or captured their friend. Instead of attempting to assist Allison, the college students hastily flee the scene, assuming the worst about the villagers' intentions. Seeing that Allison's friends have abandoned her, Dale and Tucker make the decision to take the unconscious girl back to their cabin in order to provide her with aid and care. The next morning, when Allison regains consciousness, she is initially frightened to find Dale standing before her. However, she soon realizes that the local villagers are not actually threatening, but rather, they are trying to help her. Meanwhile, Allison's friends have been making a plan to try and rescue her from the cabin. While one of them goes to call the police, the rest of the group decides to send one of their male friends into the cabin to investigate the situation. As this is happening, Tucker is outside the cabin using a chainsaw to cut a tray. Unbeknownst to him, his actions have inadvertently disrupted a beehive located in a nearby tree. The agitated bees immediately swarm Tucker, causing him to frantically wave the chainsaw around in an attempt to fend them off. Witnessing Tucker's panicked reaction with the chainsaw, Allison's friends immediately jump to the conclusion that he has gone berserk and is now a threat to their safety. Fearing for their lives, they hastily flee into the surrounding forest, desperate to escape what they perceive as a dangerous, out-of-control situation. As Tucker flees from the swarm of angry bees, one of Allison's friends is running ahead of him, assuming that Tucker is chasing him with the chainsaw, intent on harming him. However, as Tucker rushes past the friend, the boy realizes that Tucker was not actually pursuing him, but simply trying to escape the bees. Unfortunately, as the friend continues to flee, he ends up running into a thick tree branch that extends across his path. The impact proves fatal, and the boy's lifeless body is soon discovered by the rest of Allison's friends. Seeing the grim fate of their companion, Chad concludes that the only way for the group to survive is to kill Dale and Tucker, the local villagers they now view as dangerous threats. He believes that if they don't eliminate the two men, the villagers will ultimately kill the college students themselves. Meanwhile, Tucker returns to the cabin, his face heavily swollen and battered from the bee stings. He informs Allison that he has seen her friends outside, though he is unaware of the tragic turn of events that has just occurred. Allison wanted to go find her friends, but Dale told her to rest and forbade her from going out, saying she wasn't feeling well. Instead, Dale went out with his friend Tucker to look for their friends. When Dale and Tucker emerged from their cabin, their friends hid. Dale left a message saying their friends were with them, but this was misinterpreted. The friends returned to the cabin and saw Dale and Tucker digging, assuming they were digging a grave for Allison. Allison's friend attacked Dale with a stick, but it hit Allison instead, rendering her unconscious. Another friend attacked Tucker, who fell into a chopper machine and died. The chopping machine severely injures one of the friends. Tucker tries to help, but the other friends misinterpret this, thinking Tucker has killed their friend. Tucker and Dale realize the friends may think they are trying to make the group commit suicide one by one, but they can't call the police due to fear of being suspected themselves. As Tucker and Dale try to remove the injured friend's body, another of Allison's friends arrives with the police, accusing Dale and Tucker of killing their friend. However, the police find it hard to believe the student's story. Dale then tells the police that Allison is unconscious in their cabin. When the police officer enters the cabin, he accidentally puts his hand on a broken wooden pillar, causing the nails to penetrate his head. Though he manages to make it back to his police car, he dies before he can call for backup. Seeing the police officer's gruesome death, the group becomes even more terrified, worried that they will be blamed for killing him, even though it was an accident. Seizing an opportunity, one of their friends tries to take the officer's gun, but not knowing how to use it, accidentally shoots and kills himself. Then their friend Chad quickly grabs the gun and opens fire on Dale and Tucker. Forced to flee, Dale and Tucker run back to their cabin, where Chad captures their dog and threatens to kill it. Dale creates a distraction, allowing Tucker to free the dog, but Tucker is then apprehended by Chad. Chad drags Tucker into the jungle, hanging him upside down and cruelly cutting off 2 of his fingers, before sending the badly injured Tucker back to Dale. Greatly alarmed, Dale immediately goes into the jungle to try and rescue his friend Tucker and get him medical attention. Meanwhile, Chad and one of Allison's female friends have gone to the cabin to try and help Allison. There, Allison tells Chad that Dale and Tucker are actually good people who have been very helpful to her. She pleads with Chad and her other friends to believe that Dale and Tucker are not the villains they think. However, Allison's friends are unwilling to listen to her defense of Dale and Tucker. Allison tells Chad that by attacking Dale and Tucker, he is doing a favor to the killers, meaning he is helping the very people he believes are murderers. At that moment, Dale and Tucker also arrive at the cabin. Allison suggests they all sit and talk things through calmly. Chad and Dale then sit down face to face to discuss the situation. Chad reveals that the lone survivor woman they had encountered was actually his own mother. He explains that his grandmother had told him his father was killed by the locals in this area years ago. As Chad and Dale continue their conversation, 2 of Allison's other friends also arrive at the cabin. One of them suddenly attacks Tucker. In the ensuing chaos, this same friend then turns on and attacks his own female companion. A fire then breaks out, quickly engulfing the cabin. One of the male friends is tragically burned to death in the blaze. Dale and Tucker manage to escape the cabin with Allison, but then hear a huge explosion, assuming all their friends have perished inside. However, Chad then emerges from the burning cabin, his body badly burned. It appears he has somehow survived the inferno. The situation has descended into complete pandemonium, with mistrust, violence, and tragedy unfolding. Chad somehow manages to survive the cabin fire. Allison and the others flee the scene in a car, but it ends up colliding with a tree. When Dale regains consciousness, Tucker tells him that Chad has taken Allison away. Determined to rescue Allison, Dale sets off to follow them, with the help of his dog. Chad has taken Allison to an old abandoned factory, and is trying to force her to go with him, tying her up. Dale arrives at the factory and confronts Chad. In response, Chad turns on a large cutting machine, with the blade spinning dangerously close to where Allison is tied up. Dale tries to free Allison, but Chad threatens him. Eventually, Dale is able to free Allison, and they escape to a room upstairs, closing the door behind them. In this room, they find a newspaper article that provides crucial information. The article reveals that Chad's father was not actually killed by the villagers, as Chad had been told by his grandmother. Rather, it was Chad's own father who had killed Chad's mother, who was a villager herself. When Chad bursts into the room, Dale and Allison confront him with this new information from the newspaper. They tell Chad that his grandmother had been lying to him all this time about the circumstances of his father's death. However, Chad refuses to believe what the newspaper says and attacks them again, unwilling to accept the truth about his family's past. The situation remains extremely tense and volatile, with Chad still determined to do them harm despite the revelations about his own family history. Dale throws liquid on Chad, to which Chad was allergic. This causes Chad to collapse. Dale and his friends think Chad has died. They call the police to report the incident. When the police arrive, a news reporter and cameraman arrive to cover the story, and it's revealed that they are the same ones seen at the start of the movie. The man with the creepy face who had attacked them earlier was actually Chad, who was still alive. Chad is taken to the hospital, where a doctor treats his injured hand. Meanwhile, Dale and Allison go out and propose marriage to each other, suggesting a happy ending to the events. And with that, the movie ends. I hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen and don't forget to subscribe for amazing videos. See you in the next one.